Hi everyone. Welcome back to DM Druggies Matter, or I should say DLM Druggie Lives Matter. My name is Zion. I'm the author of a dual book called The Pot Smoker's Bible and Book of Zion, which can be video viewed on my YouTube channel, Pot Smoker's Bible. This segment of my channel is dedicated to the reasons why the war on drugs is wrong and why we should end the war on drugs. Because drug lives matter. And today, I'm going to be talking about the victimization of the minority groups and their rights in regards to the war on drugs. Now, I know that the first thought in your head as I'm speaking this is, what does a white woman have? What right does a white woman have to talk about minority rights? Well, let me tell you something. Or let me ask you a question. Have you ever heard the term white trailer trash? I'm white trailer trash. I'm a white woman, yes, but I'm a poor white woman, which puts me in a minority group. I'm a woman, and I'm white, and I'm poor. I'm also barren. So when I had health problems, I went to the government and asked for aid. And I was told that because I can't bear children, I am not representative in this society. So because I can't have kids, I'm in a minority, and therefore not able to get help from the government. I'm single, so I'm overtaxed, even though I'm poor. So I am marginalized. I do fit into minority categories. And one of the categories that I fit into is a drug user. I am a part of the drug using culture minority group. And you may be crying foul on that, but bear with me here. Because our rights are violated just as the rights of other minority groups are, and more so as a matter of fact. Because yes, black lives matter. Brown lives matter, red lives matter, yellow lives matter. White lives matter. We all matter. And all but the whites are oppressed, except for the poor whites. The poor white people are oppressed. We've been oppressed for the entire history of the American government because indentured servants were sold into a form of slavery. White indentured servants were enslaved from the very beginning of American history. Look it up. Now, I'm not particularly from that group of Americans, but it is a fact. So, white people have been oppressed by America since the beginning of America. Not as much as the black people, not as much as the Jewish people, not as much as the modern Islamic people and the Mexican people. No, my white trailer trash status makes me less oppressed in that regard than a black person. I totally admit that. But I'm a drug user, and that's a minority group too. And that minority group actually incorporates most of the minority population of this country in one form or another, and is responsible for a great deal of the oppression of those other minorities. You think I'm lying? Breonna Taylor. Now, I have to ask you, was Breonna Taylor killed because she was a white woman? Or a black woman? Or because she was a black woman whose ex-boyfriend was a drug dealer? What was the deciding factor in her death, my friends? It wasn't that she was black. It was that They were serving a no-knock, middle-of-the-night, unjustified warrant against her ex-boyfriend, the drug user who just happened to be black. They would not have broken into her apartment. They would not have shot her if there had not been a warrant against drug use, not black people. Black Lives Matter, yes, they do. The very prohibition of marijuana was centered around the imprisonment of black people and the expulsion of Mexicans from Texas. Look it up. So I am not in any way, shape, or form saying that the minority groups in the United States of America are not oppressed, because they are. They are oppressed every single time they fill out a form in this country. Because every time you answer the question race, you're being oppressed. Every time you answer the question religion, you're being oppressed. And every time you answer the question prison, you're being oppressed. Now, that race question is not necessary on any form. It is only there to allow the white man in charge to oppress you because you're not white. The only reason why that religious question is there is because the Christian wants to oppress you if you're not a Christian. And I spent 2 years in prison for my religious beliefs, so I belong to that minority group. Fair, front, center, live and in person. I spent 2 years in prison for my religious beliefs in regard to the use of drugs. Drug culture. People who use drugs are much more oppressed than any other minority group in this country because there are organizations within the government and in the private sector and internationally that any person of any race, color, creed can petition for grievance against. So if a black man feels that he is being oppressed, he can go to the ACLU. As a drug user, I went to the ACLU, and guess what? They never responded. I was going to prison for my religious beliefs, and the ACLU did not bother to respond to my request for aid. Why? Because it was a drug charge. I went to the legal eagles. I sought, when I was convicted, I sought to have it revisited. It's like I tried to take it back to court to go through the system up into the Supreme Court. That was my goal, was to go to the Nebraska State Supreme Court. But I was railroaded into prison. I was not even given the second trial or the hearing when I said this is wrong. They just totally disregarded it. Why? Because it was a drug charge. Because I belong to the drug people, my rights are violated. They don't exist. I don't have the right to believe that my use of drugs enables me to communicate with my God in accordance with the Bible because I use drugs. Breonna Taylor was killed because she used drugs. George Floyd was killed because he used drugs. It wasn't because he passed a fake $20 bill. It was because that cop was from ran that beat and knew that he was a drug user. So I'm sorry. But if he didn't do drugs, then I was misinformed. And I'm very sorry to his family for having been misinformed. But if he was a drug user, as I was informed that he was, then that makes my point. And Now, I'm trying to avoid the religious thing because my people, for the most part, are atheists, and I don't want to cram my religious belief on anybody. But there is a prophecy that I believe in from the Old Testament of the Bible, and it says, "How dare you grind the faces of the poor, saith the Lord." That was George Floyd's death. And God was talking not in regards to his black colored skin. He was talking in regards to his status as a drug user. Drug users are marginalized, minoritized, and have their rights stripped from them the moment they associate with a known drug user. The deaths of many of the black, brown, and red people and Asians in this country have been based not solely on the color of their skin, but on the fact that they're using drugs. And the deciding factor in this oppression and in this abuse is not the color of their skin. It's the fact that they use drugs. They belong to a gang. Why? Because they use drugs. And gangs were created to protect themselves from each other and the cops because of their drug use. Rehab. They have entire facilities whose only job is to brainwash us into giving up our minority status as a drug user. They don't try to brainwash a black person into not being black anymore, do they? No. They don't try to convince a Jewish person that they're not Jewish, do they? No, but they have whole brainwashing facilities trying to take my minority group of people who use drugs and convince them that somehow magically they're not drug users. That's worse than being beat up because you're gay. If you're gay and you get beat up, you can charge them with a hate crime. Where can I turn to when my religious beliefs were violated because I'm a pot smoker and I believe in pot? There is none. Because my minority group is made up of all of the other minority groups. And we all have one thing in common. We do drugs. And because of that, we can't get food stamps. We can't get child care. We can't get housing aid. We can't get loans. We can't get grants. We're disqualified because of our minority status as a drug user. You call us an outlaw. An outlaw. For what? For choosing a way of life that is of our own free will? I choose this way of life because it's for me. It's my way of life. And I have that right because I'm an American citizen. Unless, of course, having my rights stripped from me makes me not an American citizen, which makes me even more of a minority group. My rights have been stripped from me. White trailer trash that I am. Drug user that I am. I didn't go to prison because I was white. I went to prison because I did drugs. How many people in America can say they went to prison because they were black? How many can say they went to prison because they did drugs, they used drugs, they sold drugs? It's not the color of your skin that puts you in prison, my friend. It's the drug use that you do. Our rights have been stripped from us. We don't even have the right to decide how to spend our free time, with who to spend it, and what to take into our body for our own pleasure. Later. I'll never say goodbye.